Leaving an abusive relationship with a narcissist can be one of the most difficult things you'll ever have to do. Not only is leaving the narcissist potentially very complicated and very scary, but the aftermath can drag on and on for years sometimes. And you can find yourself deeply missing somebody that hurt you so badly. This can be confusing. You can be wondering how you can have such strong feelings and feel such grief for the loss of somebody that caused you so much trouble and so much pain. In today's video, I want to go over some of the possible reasons that you might still be hurting so much for the loss of somebody that was actually just hurting you while you were with them. And also, hopefully, some tips on how you can cope with this pain. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. Now, I first want to give you a little bit of validation and some permission to recognize some very valid feelings that you have. Just because the narcissist was a fraud or pretending to be something that they were not, or pretending to feel ways that they did not, doesn't mean that the relationship wasn't real to you. In your mind and in your heart, you were with someone that you believed in, that you loved. You had a picture in your head of who this person was, and you were deeply attached to this person. It's perfectly healthy and normal to mourn the loss of who you thought you were with. The relationship may have been fake, but it was real to you, and your feelings were real. And that's not something that you should be expected to just flip a switch and let go of, like it meant nothing. I mean, that's what narcissists do. And when we end relationships with narcissists, especially if the relationship was very intense, like a toxic sort of intensity, which is very common with narcissistic relationships, we were probably funneling an enormous amount of emotional energy towards this person. Something that we perceived as love, but was, for whatever it really was, an enormous amount of our energy and emotions. And then it's like suddenly this person just vaporizes. It's like they just don't exist anymore. And all of this emotion that we were pouring into this person, it's like now it's just all gone into a black hole. And that's really disorienting. And I think it's traumatizing to try to deal with trying to recalibrate yourself and figure out how to regulate your own emotions and trying to figure out what love even is and what you just spent the last year or 5 years or 10 years or 2 months or however long you spent with this person. What was it that this was all about? What did this relationship mean? What was all this emotional energy going towards? This is a lot to recover from and process. So it makes sense that you miss this person, even if this was somebody pretending to be somebody else. Like I said, this was a real person to you, and it represented something to you, something really important that you were pouring your emotional energy into, all your hopes and dreams into, and then it just vaporized. And it makes sense to me that for some of us, you can develop a very, very intense grief, and you can miss this person tremendously. I don't think that we as human beings are meant to grieve the loss of something that never existed. It's kind of like grieving the loss of somebody that you had a dream about. Like if you had an extremely vivid dream about somebody and this dream felt like it lasted for years and you were completely in love with this person in your dream, and then you suddenly wake up and realize that this person wasn't real. It was a figment of your imagination and they're just gone. And there's not even really anybody to mourn. I mean, that's really devastating. And I don't think that that's something that we're really meant to experience. And my second piece of validation I want to give is for people that say things like, how could I be so stupid? Or how could I be so in love with somebody that treated me so badly? Or when I've heard some people on the internet say things like, oh, you miss the narcissist? What, do you miss being yelled at, cheated on, lied to? What part do you miss? And I mean, I think that's all really well intentioned, and I think that it can serve a good purpose in some ways. But I also think it's useful to step back and recognize and acknowledge that no, you don't miss the person that lied to you and cheated on you and abused you and yelled at you and insulted you and all that. That's not who you miss. You don't miss that person. You miss the person that you fell in love with. You miss the person that was exciting and affectionate and attentive and maybe really good looking and maybe a lot of fun and maybe somebody that showered you with gifts and love and somebody that convinced you that they were going to make all your dreams come true. That's the person you miss, and that's the person that you probably, if you're watching this video, you probably still miss. So don't be too hard on yourself for missing this person that was so terrible to you, because that's not who you miss. And it's perfectly understandable that you would miss the person that you thought you knew and the person that the narcissist was pretending to be and the part that the narcissist played for long enough to get you hooked and to capture your heart. Of course you miss that person that you thought you were with. I could compare it to a delicious piece of chocolate cake. Like maybe you have this big chocolate cake and it is just the most delicious thing you have ever eaten in your life, right? And let's say you have 5 pieces left and you go to get a piece of this cake and you're so excited to eat it, and then you realize that it's full of mold, that there's mold all through the rest of this cake. And you're just totally, I mean, it's a total bummer because this was the best cake ever and you have to throw the rest of it away. And I mean, I guess comparing a cake to somebody that you're in love with maybe isn't the best analogy, but you know, you're really brokenhearted that you can't have the cake back that you had before, the cake that you loved so much, that was so delicious, because now there's mold all through it. And it's kind of like having somebody come along later and say, oh, you missed that cake? You miss all that mold and rot in the cake? Like, no, you don't. You miss the cake you had before. You miss the person you thought you were with. You miss the person that made you feel so good, that seemed to love you, that was attentive and affectionate and fun and exciting. That's who you miss, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I want to talk about one thing that really helped me as I was healing, that, you know, maybe it was just me, but to this day, I still struggle with black and white thinking, just like a narcissist does, actually. And I had a really hard time reconciling the idea that the narcissist can do good things and have good traits, and the narcissist could have done things for me and with me that were great, that there was nothing wrong with, and be justified in leaving this person because they were abusive and just all around terrible, right? I think that it's okay to acknowledge that most narcissists have good traits. I can think of one that I honestly cannot think of any good traits this person has, but most narcissists, while they may be abusive, while they may be a very, very unhealthy partner, they may be someone that will hurt you, somebody that you really shouldn't be with if you want to have a happy, healthy life. While they may be all those things, that doesn't mean that they don't have any good traits. That doesn't mean that there wasn't anything good about the relationship. And I think that it's healthy to recognize and acknowledge the good parts of the relationship and be able to combine them at the same time with the reasons that you don't want to be in this relationship anymore. Because if you don't allow yourself to acknowledge that this person had good traits, that there were some good things about the relationship, then when this cognitive dissonance really gets to be too much for you, you may, when you find yourself in a situation in which you're kind of forced to recognize, oh, no, you know, that was a really nice thing that he or she did, or that was a really good thing about that person that I miss. You might kind of trick yourself into completely invalidating everything bad about the narcissist. I mean, the narcissist will do that to you themselves. When you say something to them like, you never listen to me, or you're so mean, you're so impatient, they'll throw out all their good traits. Well, what about that time that I picked you up from the grocery store? Or what about that time that I helped you with that bill that you had? Like, what about this? And you might end up doing that to yourself if you don't allow yourself to acknowledge, yes, there were good things about the relationship, and it was abusive and toxic and not healthy for me at the same time. So it's okay to celebrate being free of somebody that hurt you, that was abusive, that was difficult to live with, and at the same time to recognize the good things that you lost at the same time. Okay, now let's get into what I touched on a little earlier, is the intensity of a toxic relationship. What I've talked about so far can apply to pretty much any normal relationship that ends for whatever reason. But with narcissists, everything that I just talked about can potentially be magnified 100 times because of the intensity and the toxicity of the relationship. So while you may miss them for reasonable, explainable reasons, the intensity of how much you miss them might still not quite make sense to you. When a normal relationship ends, it's normal to feel sadness, maybe even grief, maybe even feel really, really bad for a little bit, but it's not normal to feel like you've lost a limb, that you cannot go on, that you don't even know who you are anymore. It's not normal to be swallowed in indescribable, excruciating agony for months, sometimes years, before you recover. I mean, that's not normal. And that is not something that happens when a healthy relationship ends. At least I don't think that that's typical in a healthy relationship. In a truly healthy relationship, you love the other person, but you're also capable of holding on to your own autonomy and functioning on your own if that becomes necessary. So how does this happen, particularly with narcissists and other really toxic relationships? First of all, the narcissist in the beginning of the relationship can really spot vulnerabilities. They are hound dogs sniffing out the trail of vulnerabilities. They are looking for what it is that you need most, and even things that you need most at that moment in your life. They are really trying to figure that out, and then they're trying to present you with whatever it is you feel that you so desperately need. So the more vulnerable you are, or the more in need you are of something missing out of your life, the easier it will be for a narcissist to rope you into their act or rope you into a relationship. Because if they can figure out what you're longing for, what you need that you don't have, all they have to do is just pretend to present that to you, pretend to be the solution. And this can create a very strong bond between you and the narcissist if you come to believe that they are the answer to whatever your problems or your deepest needs may be. So that can be really hard to let go of. That can cause a lot of grief and pain if after you believe that whatever it is that you so deeply long for is yours now, that somebody is going to give you these things that you need so badly, when you suddenly realize that this was all a lie and that this need that you had is still open and unanswered, you not only have to deal with the pain of being betrayed and having somebody that you love turn out to be somebody that you never even really knew, but now you have this need that you had before completely reopen itself. So you have the original pain, which you've been conditioned to believe can be answered with this narcissist, and now you have the pain on top of that of the betrayal and the heartbreak of losing the narcissist, while at the same time still dealing with the conditioning that makes you believe that they are the ones that can heal this original pain. So of course, that's going to make your grief a lot more intense. It's going to make it a lot more complicated to recover from this type of a relationship. Another reason that these relationships can be so intense is because of enmeshment, which is very typical in a codependent relationship. I know I experienced this myself, and it's really hard to explain. I think it's really hard to explain, especially to somebody that has experienced enmeshment and did not realize that it wasn't normal and has never experienced anything but enmeshment. It's really hard to see it. It's like a fish trying to understand water. So enmeshment is, as I came to realize it, is not seeing yourself as an autonomous person, or not seeing yourself as a good enough person by yourself. That being with the narcissist has somehow added something to your identity and something to the way that you're able to see yourself that's very intoxicating, that really makes you feel good about yourself and really seems to fill in an emotional vacuum that you might have for whatever reason. You become emotionally dependent on the narcissist for feeling good about yourself and who you are. And because the narcissist doesn't see you as an autonomous person, it's really easy for you to start buying into that mentality as well, and really losing yourself and concentrating all your effort on being the person that the narcissist wants you to be. Here's a couple ways that you can kind of test for yourself if you are somebody that's prone to enmeshment, or maybe somebody that is in a relationship with a little bit of enmeshment. If your partner, let's say that they have a hobby that they really love. Let's say they love to go fishing, okay? And they want to take you with them. And you've never been interested in fishing. I mean, maybe when you were a kid, you did it a couple times, and you don't hate it. Like, sounds fun to you, right? But maybe you'd rather do something else. I think in a enmeshed relationship in which one person has more emotional control over the other person, if they like to go fishing, okay, you're going to feel this pressure of like, well, I have to go fishing with them because they love fishing so much. So I kind of have to start loving fishing too. If I try to tell this person, I really don't like fishing, I'd rather go hiking instead. So, maybe you can go fishing and I'll go hiking. Or if you want to go hiking with me sometime, and then maybe sometime we'll go fishing. I mean, that would be great, because fishing's not really my thing. If thinking that makes you feel afraid of losing the other person, or losing their interest, or not being good enough for them, that's a sign of enmeshment, where you feel like you have to somehow be the same as this person in order to be accepted by them, and in order to be seen as the person you want them to see when they look at you. I mean, I hate even explaining it in this depth, because I have done this before, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of sad that I didn't feel like I could just be myself and have my own preferences and actually dare to say, I'd rather not do that thing, or, that might be your favorite thing, but I don't really care for it so much. I have my own interests over here. I didn't feel safe being that way. I felt like I had to chase this person around like a little puppy dog, figuring out the right things to be interested in, the right hobbies that I'm supposed to like. And when you are enmeshed with somebody, especially if you've been with them for a long time, your identity can start to become so muddled up with this person that you don't even know what you like anymore. I remember there was one activity that I did a lot with a certain person, and I really honestly convinced myself that I loved to do this activity, and that this was like my favorite thing to do because it was what he liked to do. And I honestly believed this. I convinced myself of it. And long after the relationship was over, I remember taking a long time to try to figure out, wait, did I ever actually like doing this thing? It was really pretty trippy. And now today I can look back and say, you know what? No, I didn't like it at all. I mean, there were parts of it that I enjoyed, but in general, that's not something I ever want to do again. And I'm actually really glad that I don't have to do it anymore. And it's just crazy to me that you can be so out of touch with yourself and who you are, and you can be so enmeshed in an unhealthy relationship that you can actually become confused about what your own preferences are. You can actually not know what it is you like and what you don't like, because you're so caught up with trying to be the right kind of person for this person that is just way too important to you. This person becomes way more important to you than you are to yourself. So when you lose a relationship with somebody that has basically taken the place of your own identity for you, this can be really, really hard to recover from. This can cause a lot of intense pain. To me, it kind of felt like floating out in outer space. You know, like I had been hooked to this mothership out in outer space, and now I've just been cut free and I'm just floating out in outer space, and I have no safe ship to attach myself to. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know where I'm going in life. I don't know what to focus my energy on. So it really took me a long time to get to know myself and to be able to find peace and happiness within myself that wasn't dependent on another person. Another reason that you might miss a narcissist very, very intensely is trauma bonding. And I've talked about trauma bonding a lot on my channel. I'll put a card up somewhere where I go into it into a little more detail. But trauma bonding is just basically when you actually become addicted to the cycle, I should say. Because while trauma bonding can feel like an addiction to a specific person, it's really an addiction to the cycle itself. Trauma bonding is when the inconsistency and unpredictability in a relationship causes you to become dependent on it, meaning that there are good days and there are bad days, and you just never know when you're going to run into a good day or run into a bad day. Healthy relationships might have bad days, but it's not this constant roller coaster of like, oh, today's a bad day. Oh, today's a good day. Oh, it's a good day. Oh, it's a bad day. Oh, I've had 2 weeks of good days. Wow, I'm going to have a bad day any day now. That's not how healthy relationships work. They're pretty stable and consistent. And every day you're with a healthy person in a healthy relationship, it's basically the same experience every day. You're not dealing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So the trauma bonding happens because in the beginning of the relationship, this person made you feel absolutely amazing about yourself. Okay, so there's like fireworks going off in your head. And then as the relationship went on, they kind of stopped treating you like that. And they kind of started treating you pretty crappy. Maybe one day they really went off and started yelling at you and insulting you, and you don't know what to make of it. Like, wow, this person made me feel so amazing for the first however long in the relationship. What happened today? Why were they in such a bad mood? Wow. And you think it's just an aberration. And so, you know, maybe a couple of days later, they're nice to you again. And that makes you feel relief. I really like to use the word relief when talking about trauma bonds, because I think that's really the key. You feel relief, like, oh, good. Okay, that was just a bad day. Something weird happened, but we're back to normal now. Everything's great. Wow. But then, of course, the cycle continues and you have another bad day and the narcissist is screaming at you or just being really mean to you, or maybe they cheat on you or they treat you like you don't matter, or they give you the silent treatment or whatever. You have another bad day. And again, you're like, what is wrong? Why is this person treating me like this? But then you have a good day, and that good day feels so amazing and wonderful. You're over the moon. Everything's back to normal. Oh, I was worried over nothing. And you start going like this, up and down, up and down. And these highs become so intoxicating that you can actually become addicted to them. Now, what can you do when you are just buried in this grief and this intense pain, and you miss the narcissist so much that you don't even know how you're going to function for the rest of your life? I mean, I've been there, and it's really, really, really painful. And I had days where I thought, wow, living in an abusive relationship was better than this. You know, at least I wasn't in pure agony 24/7 when I was being abused. At least I still had some good days, and I still had this false hope that things would turn around sometime, right? But I just want anybody listening to this, if that's how you're feeling, if you're really in the thick of it right now, stay no contact, or as minimal contact as possible. Every word, every text, every glance that you exchange with somebody that's abused you in this way is like poison. Really try to minimize any contact. try to resist the urge of looking them up on social media. Really distance yourself as much as humanly possible from this person, because every little tiny bit of any kind of contact that is made is going to slow you down and make it more difficult for you to heal. And I know it can be really tempting to reach out, and it can be really difficult to stop rehearsing what you might be able to say to them or write to them that might finally get through and make them understand how terrible that they've been to you. I know it can be really difficult, especially when they're hoovering you, when they're reaching out to you and they're texting you and calling you and knocking on your door and bothering you. It can be really, 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 really hard to stick to no contact. But just remember, this is key for your healing. It's really, really important to minimize contact. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. You cannot heal with the person that caused you all of this pain. You've got to distance yourself so that you can get your thoughts together, so that you can be able to think clearly and get to know yourself again. Another piece of advice I have that took me a long time to learn, I actually learned it from my therapist, is that it's okay to distract yourself from your pain sometimes. I was under the impression that if I felt like crying my lungs out for 3 hours, that I should just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry for as long as I felt like crying. And I think that this actually slowed down my healing, because there was no end to my tears. There was no end to the pain. It was kind of like vomiting, but I never run out of things that keep coming up. And my therapist told me that, it's okay to cry for a little bit, but then stop. Just stop, calm down, distract yourself. And that really, really helped me. So recognize your feelings, and if you feel like crying, definitely cry, but then recognize when it's enough and it's okay to distract yourself. You don't have to cry and focus on your pain until it goes away, because it's never going to go away. And if you do that, it's going to take even longer to heal, because you're spending so much time and energy actually feeding the pain that you're feeling. So it's a balance. It's a balance of recognizing and expressing and acknowledging your pain, and then only allotting a certain amount of time to it, and then allowing yourself the rest of the time to distract yourself and focus on something else, and to stop crying and to think about something else, to allow yourself to do that. And of course, I would personally recommend not getting back into a relationship until you really feel a lot better. And I think that it's different for everybody when they're ready to be in a relationship again, but really give it some time. I would not recommend getting back into a relationship when you're still in a lot of pain. You might still be in a little bit of pain, but when you're really in the thick of it, a new relationship is not going to help you heal the pain from the old relationship. And if you're using it for that, then you're really getting into the relationship for, in my opinion, the wrong reasons. Your new relationship shouldn't be an emotional crutch for you. It should be a partnership between two people that have sorted out their own issues and have mostly healed from whatever traumas they have, and are not relying on each other to solve each other's pain. That's what you've just escaped from when you end a narcissistic relationship, is somebody that was relying on you to solve their emotional problems. So give yourself some time to really heal and become whole again before you jump back into a relationship. And lastly, have faith and be patient. I know it's easy for me to say because I've been through it, and it was really, really difficult. And there were definitely days that I wondered if I was never gonna not be in pain again, if I was just going to have to live with this excruciating emotional pain for the rest of my life. But there is an end to it. You will eventually get through to the other side. The sun does come up again. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on this journey that you're on. You are worth it, and the quality of your life is worth it. And someday this is all going to be just a story of something that happened to you, and that pain is going to be processed. And I mean, it's always going to be there a little bit, but it's not going to be there in a way that debilitates you, that controls your life, that makes the sky gray, that makes you feel miserable and lonely and in pain all the time. That is going to go away eventually. If you stay away from the person that caused this pain in the first place and you focus on healing yourself and getting to know yourself and focus on the skills that you need to develop to be able to function and attract a healthy relationship, I promise that this is all going to be worth it, and that you're going to wake up one day and wonder, why did I miss that person so much? What the heck? That person didn't have anything to offer me compared to what I have now just by myself or in this new healthy relationship that I've learned to function in. One day your grief will be replaced with just disgust for this person that you were with, or maybe pity, or maybe just indifference of like, wow, why did I let that bother me so much? And you'll actually have to sit and think about it to try to remember why this person caused you so much pain. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.